Hi, my name is Gil Robertson, president of the African American Film Critics Association. Today, we are thrilled to be talking to literally the creative team responsible for one of our favorite series, Spider-Noir, on Amazon Prime. We're going to kick things off by introducing you to the AAFCA members on the call today, starting with Tatiana in New York, Nancy Green in LA, Jill Monroe in Los Angeles, Al McGee in South Florida, Dana Abercrombie in New York, New York. And I think that's it.
You
And
forgot
Derek
me.
Dunn. Derek, you're in DC, right?
Yes, sir.
In Washington, DC, the nation's capital. I'm going to let you guys do what you do so well, and I will see you on the other side.
Every mystery forms a complex web. But pull the right strand, and it's a straight line to the answer.
I'm glowing bright obsidian.
Universe trends to disorder.
Axolotl amphibian.
Monsters on the loose.
Unelemental chemical.
All you can do is fight to keep the chaos from your door.
I came here to offer you a job. My friend disappeared.
You haven't given us much to go.
What can I say? The world's a dangerous place. But I think you're braver than you let on.
Got me growing 6 black tentacles.
You've been in a hole ever since Ruby died.
We're chasing ghosts.
Maybe we can be alone together.
This is your chance to put that shovel down. So what are you waiting for? Let the best man live.
This is how it ends.
The people could use a hero. Fighting is the point. He's the best show in town.
What happened to your face?
I walked into a door.
How many times?
Well, that's new.
Yes, it sounds crazy, I know.
Hi, Dana Abercrombie, the Coalition. First of all, thank you everyone for speaking to us. My question is directed at Sebastian. Because there were two different versions, both the Technicolor and the black and white version, can you talk kind of the differences in the challenges or maybe the benefits of having these two different versions and finding the creativity within them?
One of the best parts about being a songwriter is trying to kind of figure out how to put together those puzzles. And the best, I say all the time, the best thing you can make in music is a friend. And so my good friend, Oak, kind of helped steer me through that, right? And helped kind of like, okay, keep in mind it's gonna look like this. And it's like, okay, yeah. So being able to like paint that visual, like that mental image, it influences the way you take to a lyric or the way you take to a melody. If it feels smoky, you want to say smokier words or something, you know. I look at it as more of an opportunity than a challenge. But yeah, the opportunity to kind of play in the worlds between Technicolor and black and white was incredible.
How's it going on? Derek Dunn, Reviews and Done. Just a quick question for Mr. Oak. So, longtime fan, sir. Going all the way back to 2005. I'm an album credit reader. So doing this, somewhat composing, how does this differ from your work in R&B with acts like Chris Brown, Trey Songz, Lloyd, Genuine, and your very, very expansive catalog?
This is different in a lot of ways. And let me be clear about something. I didn't composed this particular show. I believe my man Kris did the composition on this one, which I'm actually a big fan of his. So I'm actually really excited to be sitting on this panel with him. But I did have the benefit and the honor of writing actual music, like performed music for the show. So when you saw like some of the characters performing or the opening theme. And how this is different is that doing film and TV music in and of itself, in a lot of ways can be a lot more focused. The intention of it tends to be a little bit more direct. And the good thing about that is that you end up having this opportunity to create sort of an energy and like an emotional layer that adds to the drama of the show. Whereas on the record side, you're really just representing one idea in and of itself. One song is about one thing, is about one artist, is about one story. And this ends up being one piece of an overall larger story. And having the opportunity to be able to place, emotional components into something that somebody's going to watch and be moved by it's such an amazing, amazing feeling. And in that way, it's similar. To doing records with different artists, such as my man, Sebastian Kole here, who's also an artist named Pinkbeard. He's one of my favorite country artists.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Shout out to Kris Bowers, too. I'm a huge fan of yours.
Absolutely.
Oh, same. Appreciate that. Yeah, same, Oak.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Nancy Green here. There are so many great action sequences in this. So I wanted to know for you, what was your favorite sequence to work on?
Yeah, I can jump in first. On the score side, we were writing to picture, so we came in at a point where we could watch the entire season actually, and start writing to that. And I feel like my favorite part maybe isn't necessarily one sequence, but more so finding the sound of the show. Like we talked about how we could find a way to fuse both of these worlds, the superhero and the noir sound. But the thing that was really amazing is how much Warren, our showrunner, was pushing us to find a completely different and unexpected sound. Like we thought it was going to be kind of 50-50 in terms of pulling from both a noir palette and context and the superhero sound. And in our early conversations, Warren was mentioning punk rock guitar and, unorthodox percussion and all these different things that got our wheels turning in a different way. And so the first thing we did was create themes for each of our main characters. And it was amazing to have this entire series to look at, because then in order to write Ben's theme, even though, we know him as the spider, a lot of the series is him trying to grapple with this trauma and this past that's caused him to put the mask away and contemplate whether or not he wants to wear it at all and whether or not he considers himself a hero. And so because we had a lot of material to look at, instead of just jumping to the opening of the episode and writing his theme to that, I was able to look at some of the moments where he's a bit more introspective, or where we have more context about this history with his love that passed away, and writing a theme that has a bit more darkness to it or emotion to it allowed us to make sure that it had the malleability to work in moments that were going to be triumphant and heroic, but also tragic and heartbreaking and a bit darker. And so the creation of each of those themes was fun to look at. Basically a scene at any point in the first few episodes that really embodies the entirety of a character's identity and mentality and worldview, and writing a melody and a theme to that moment, because we felt like if we could speak to that one moment, then we could possibly use that theme in all these other places. And once we had that theme in the first iteration, whether it was Silvermane torturing somebody but whispering while he's doing it, or again, Ben talking about losing his love, we were able to make sure it worked there, but then immediately test it in the biggest moments or the most quiet moments, just to see if it was going to work across the arc of these characters for the whole series.
I didn't do much composition in the action scenes because you don't want words to get in the way of action. But the songs that were selected were more performances, and whenever you get a chance to kind of get into a period piece. I think that the most exciting part about that is it's almost like learning another language, right? Like kind of speaking to what he was saying about themes. Like you don't want to. I don't want this to sound like some big 44-year-old pink bearded black man is singing this, right? So so it's like okay, what's the language that fits here? Wonderful to have such a good friend and partner to give me such a good bit of music to kind of play on top of, but I tried to keep that keep the mystery, because you don't want to oversell the story. Like it's not my job to write the plot, right? It's my job to just kind of color around what's being said and kind of to a certain degree move the plot along without spoiling it, which I think is again just part of putting those puzzle pieces together, trying to learn. I didn't have the benefit of seeing the series beforehand, so I was kind of working off of like a one sheet. Okay, this is basically what this is about, right? And then trying to embody that feeling and try to put that back into lyric and melody.
So there is one song particularly that we did, the Devil You Know, which is in the series, and it's performed by it's performed immediately after. I'm trying not to spoil it, but I guess, yeah, I shouldn't spoil it. I'm not going to spoil it. It's just a bad idea to spoil it. I'm not going to spoil it. But it's performed immediately after a very shocking death. Like it's something that happens right after a very shocking death. And it is a death that is by and large because of another character. And so this song, The Devil You Know, is about that character. And when we originally wrote that song, I was given like a general sense of something like that would be the case. Although I did tell Oren not to spoil it for me because I'm a huge geek and I intended to watch it as an audience member anyway. So I tell you, it's like, hey, don't tell me what's going to happen. Just give me a general idea and then, we'll do what we're going to do. And the best thing about that is seeing the song play essentially as the response, the emotional response that the characters have to this individual's death and this moment that happens in the show. And it's not necessarily part of an action sequence, but it is the result of one. And I think that can be equally as important. Oh, and by the way, Sebastian Kole, you killed it when you wrote that record. Hey. Amazing work, brother.
Thank you. Like when you sit back and you look at like your life, right? And you think like, what have I done with myself? And then you go, oh, well, I did get to write the theme for Spider-Man, which is insane. Like, that's just crazy. Like 8-year-old me is still kicking himself and pinching himself about that. I cannot believe that's a real thing. I can't believe that's real.
Nice. I feel the same way. I feel exactly the same way.
Right.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Al McGee here at YETicket.com. Yeah, I'm going through that right now, looking back, and also my younger me. But when I was watching this series, I was trying to understand the concept, and I love the concept. So when they approach you guys about this concept about Spider-Man in the 1930s, 40s, and what did you think about that? How did you feel about that? When they approach you about this, and also, about the time and things like that, about this type of Spider-Man.
Hey, it's Warren Young. I'm the production designer.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I was excited. I mean, I love New York and the idea of New York. Some of the things that came to mind immediately, more specific to your question, 1933, the Depression, the Great Depression. What does that look like in New York? The Harlem Renaissance was still pretty vibrant through 1933. And how might we be able to reflect that idea without making the project a political project? It's impossible to ignore the politics of the time. You have a very distinct divide between the have and the have-nots. And I think initially we might not have, there might not have been the idea that we would have played some of the things happening, like the colors only or whites only entrance for Robbie, for example. but it was ultimately impossible to ignore what's going on in the world in New York, given what was happening at the time, not only with the economy, but also with race relations. And so I was excited about that. And also just trying to depict New York as accurately as possible from our studios in New York. I mean, sorry, in Los Angeles, where we filmed everything, largely on stage, but also on backlots at Warner Brothers and Universal, and downtown Los Angeles to an extent. It was an exciting prospect to jump into. And also, I'm a huge film noir fan, so when I was hired initially, the project was just going to be black and white. The color idea came a handful of weeks later, um, as a question and then as a demand, because another project in black and white wasn't performing too well. It turned out it had nothing to do with the black and white of it. But anyway, then I had to start another process of investigating what the world looked like in color during this time. And a lot of the vibrancy, although we're in the Great Depression, was a reflection of what happened during the Roaring Twenties in New York and beyond. So the world went from a darker age. We're coming out of Victorian into the Roaring Twenties, where there was a lot of gilt, GILT, a lot of vibrancy and colors on walls and fabrics and textures and whatnot.
I was about to say I'm actually a fan of yours as well, Warren. Like the production design on the show is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
I think it's really important to. I was a fan myself of the 2009 comic book, and the graphic vibe of that book really depicted New York in the Roaring Twenties era, as you would imagine it would. I mean, I wasn't alive in the era, right? Although I do look like it sometimes.
I got you beat.
I wasn't alive to actually see it, but but I don't know that Harlem is depicted in the original graphic novel, and it was in the show, and I think that's so fire because so much of, especially for instance, like jazz culture, which was like a huge thing, pop music essentially at the time, came, a lot of it came out of Harlem as it relates to the New York culture of it all. So I thought it was real cool that y'all, gave it so much tenderness in terms of how you treated it, man. It's very beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah,
very beautiful work.
The goal, I think, ultimately for all of us was and particularly with Warren and Steve, was that everything felt organic in its appearance and its presence. That we weren't trying to force an idea or a thought on anyone. I mean, if you walk down the street in New York in 1933, depending on which way you went, depending on which train station you got on or off at, these are the places, the people that you would encounter. And I should also say, it was really a team effort, and with Hnedel and special effects, Tracy with costumes, my team, on so many levels, everything came together in order to ultimately give everyone the experiences that they're having, both in the black and white and in the color.
Visual effects, Warren.
What did I say?
Special.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes.
All good, man.
Hnedel and his visual effects team of mastery. And I was watching the first episode again this morning in black and white. I'm just like near tears in my eyes, just looking at just how seamlessly everything came together. But also in how effectively I felt that we as a team told the story, and the vis effects was such a critical part of us being able to tell 1933 New York and in a modern day world.
Thank you. I'm Hnedel Maximore, visual effects supervisor for SPIDER-NOIR. I think, a similar sentiment as everyone on this call, right? Like every one of us who worked on this, comic book fans. I grew up in Liberia, West Africa. I didn't grow up with access to a ton of comic books, but the few comic books that we did have was Spider-Man and Superman and Batman. So like this character resonates with me to my core and is part of like my upbringing. And then I also did not go to film school. I went to architecture school, and during my years in architecture school, you spend a lot of time building models out of balsa wood and plywood. And all the time we spent in studio building these architectural models, we would have a projector in the studio
with a movie playing. And for us, it was something from Kubrick. It was Casablanca. For whatever reason, my year with all of my architecture school friends, we had a ton of film noirs playing. And so to have this opportunity to like connect childhood comic book fandom and reconnect with like architecture school and revisiting film noir was an amazing experience. And all of the world building and visual effects that we did, certainly like tons of credit to Warren, because a lot of visual effects success stems from the production design and the template that is set up by like your production designer. Warren and I immediately clicked, not just because our kids go to the same school, but like, from a design standpoint, like I had some references in my pitch deck to Warren that seemed to like be a reflection of what Warren had already presented to Warren like a few weeks earlier, sorry. So, coming to this project and just being in sync with people that you weren't aware were going to be on this project with was amazing.
Yeah, that's what I got out of the series. I really enjoyed it. And I started reading Spider-Man when I was a kid. Now, I really enjoyed this. And you guys, with the special effects and the design of it, it was so wonderful. It put me there when I watched this. I want to thank you guys for coming here and being and talking to us AAFCA members. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Hi, Tatiana here with Medium Popcorn. This is for the whole panel. Collaboration is a huge part of working on a series like this. And so can you share an example of a moment where music and visual effects came together to elevate a scene beyond what either can do alone?
I'm going to take a stab at this. Okay. First off, I didn't know there was this many black people that worked on this show. And so shout out to black people.
Yeah.
I didn't know. And collaboration, of course, again, I said this earlier, I said again, the best thing you're ever going to make in any industry is a friend, right? Like it's so important to be able to trust the person beside you. Because, a series is so much lifting. There's so many things, visual effects and special effects and makeup and set design and like things that to hear those people talk against another language, not the world I live in, right? Sometimes even when I'm working with, we are in the same industry, to hear him talk, I'm just like, yeah, whatever you say, you know what I'm saying? Like, so being collaborative, even when it just came to just the theme, like I'm like, okay, this is why they were looking for this. Okay, now it makes sense. And so like seeing those pieces kind of interlock together to like, because you're writing a room. I mean, you're writing a song. It's just me and Oak. We're in a room together, right? And we're just like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. And so to see it like laid against the visual, even as far as like watching the music video of the theme song that was performed by Kirby is like, oh, okay, I get it now. So adding every single layer, again, from the visual effects to like how it's written, to how the scenes lift and why that song goes there and blah blah. Really just, it brought the biggest smile to my face, to think that, I was a part of that. And even though I couldn't see the whole thing at the time, looking back at it, you can see, I don't know, I guess you could just kind of see those pieces gel together, and it's incredible.
The opening theme visuals themselves, I think, are absolutely stunning, right? And so I'm going to speak for a moment as an audience member and a geek, right, who likes watching comic book stuff, and say that a lot of times when you're watching shows or television or movies or whatever, shows particularly, and there's an opening theme and it's accompanied by a visual, it's easy to just assume that those things were sort of born together and have always been just sort of one entity, right? And man, to see the process of it come together. Okay, this is what our visual is going to look like. Here are some of the sequences. Pay attention to what's happening, and in a lot of ways, it's very similar. It's very similar to score, in that you have to kind of pay attention to the emotional cues that are happening during the opening theme. And again, shout out to Kris, who was nice enough to provide some string accompaniment to the song. That was real cool of you, Kris. I really appreciate it.
No, my pleasure, of course.
Yeah, and just seeing those two elements sort of be almost born separately, but then coupled together. It's like watching soulmates meet each other, right? That's exactly what it feels like. So that when it's presented after the fact, people don't think that it's two separate entities. And it's actually more than two separate entities. It's thousands of tiny pieces, but just in general, two separate entities sort of put together. And for me, that's been, if I'm being honest, it's been a really magical part of the process. It's like seeing somebody perform a magic trick, and you know how to do it, but it's like somehow, 1 plus 2, 1 plus 1 in this situation equals 100. And it's like, wow, how does that even happen? And even though you're part of the process, it still feels like magical. So I really enjoyed it. I had a good time. Putting that together. But shout out also to this. I hope I'm saying it right. Special effects, visual effects. Can somebody correct me? What's the best way to say that? Visual effects. Okay. All right. Yeah. I just want to give it the proper.
I led you
respect.
all astray. I'm sorry. It is definitely visual effects.
Visual effects. Okay.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
Shout out to the visual effects team that put together that opening sequence. It's absolutely gorgeous. And when it finally came out and we watched it, my wife, normally, and I hate to say this, some shows I'll watch the first one, I'll watch the second one, and then I'll skip it for the rest of them, right? For this particular one, I listened to it and watched it every single time. So, shout out to the VFX crew for doing this. It's really cool.
Kirby's performance in that and that song is amazing. It's on all of my playlist, all the playlists. My playlist, my daughter's playlist, my wife's playlist, and so we end up hearing it a couple times a week.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Shout out Kirby, man.
Kirby is amazing. She's a fantastic singer and one of my favorite people.
As far as the collaboration between visual effects and music, there isn't a ton of crossover with VFX and music, at least in most projects that I've been on. On this project, on the other hand, we did have there's quite a bit of crossover between visual effects and sound design, specifically for timing, and all the sound effects cues that are needed when we do visual effects. And I'll give you a story of this one reference where when Sandman transforms, the way his skin deteriorates and turns into sand and starts churning. We went through a few different examples and a few different ways to approach it. There's a art installation by a New Zealand DJ, electronic music artist and installation, and it's called Cymatic, right? But basically what he did was he put some sand on a table and put a speaker underneath the table and ran sound through it. So you get these like beautiful patterns with all the sound waves moving through the sand. You get like these beautiful, interesting patterns. And I really like that idea of playing with sound and how we can introduce sound into Sandman's transformation. Pitched it as an initial idea to Oren. He loved it. And then we ran it. We did the effect in a couple shots. What was happening was the effect looked cool when we were doing our VFX reviews with the audio off. And then when we turned sound on and there's dialogue, it started to pull away from Jack Houston's performance. So we had to abandon it and go back to the drawing board and reapproach it. And what we ended up settling on and what's actually in the show is less of the churning and the vibration, but more of a like skin growth or sand transformation and growth that's akin to like mold or eczema or like an irritated skin. And when Oren saw it, he was like, I'm not distracted by his performance. His performance is coming through, but the visuals are still disturbing and it looks uncomfortable and painful. I love that.
Mm.
And then he walked away. He was like, and then he walked away. Unbeknownst to us, he was having a separate conversation with our sound design team. And the first question he asked them was, what does eczema sound like? So
Mm.
our sound design, so the sound designers had to go through and try to figure out what eczema or irritated skin sounded like, and that's what's ended up. That's what's in the show. So that there's like this under to this sound effect every time Flint Marko is transforming into Sandman of this irritated skin and churning, and it's beautiful the outcome of it. But that's the typical collaboration between VFX and kind of like the sound team.
I can jump in too on the score because we were heavily influenced by the updating visual effects because we watched the entire series when we came on, but a lot of the visual effects were still work in progress. And so, Flint is a perfect example where we didn't really know what that was going to look like when we first started writing his theme and seeing some of those early tests that Hnedel and the rest of the team were working on. Michael Dean Parsons, my co-composer, and I, we thought of actually recording the sound of rocks breaking apart and sand churning and things like that. And so in the score, whenever he starts to transform, there's sound in the score that's actually the sound of gravel and rocks and sand and all these things that have been pitched and detuned and turned into this kind of rhythmic pattern, and also percussion that's being played to sound like it's an accompaniment with that as well. And similarly with Megawatt, like watching the way that when we finally saw this electricity on his skin and how that develops over the course of his mood, and how there are moments where he's starting to get upset and you start to see it flutter and move across his skin, and then as he gets more and more angry it starts to be more active. And so we came up with this woodwind thing where you hear these woodwinds playing this abstract movement and gesture, and that starts to grow whenever we see that developing over the course of it. So there's all these small ways that we continue to tinker with the thematic material and palette for each character to represent some of these things we were inspired by on the visual side. And then I would also want to point out that the episode 106, I think, was the biggest thing for us being inspired by visual effects and design, everything about that episode, because we had gotten through the first 5 episodes of this series developing a sound that Oren felt really happy with and comfortable with, and developing all our themes. And so our first approach on 106 was kind of writing it the same way we did all the other episodes in terms of what we wanted it to sound like. And we shared that with Oren, and it was one of the first times that pretty much the entire episode was wrong and had to be thrown out, because he was like, this is actually completely different. I don't want this to sound like the rest of the show at all. And this has to be our crazy out of the box, bottle episode where this needs to sound nothing like anything else we've heard. And so we took a pass, and even that second pass was like, this is still not crazy enough. Like, look at what we're seeing. We're seeing spiders crawling out of his body, and he's transforming. And then he's on this crazy trip where he's a mini version of himself, and we see all of this kind of like nightmarish imagery. And so that episode in particular was leaning into all kinds of weird effects, like recording marching band and then stretching it to be, half tempo, and recording this beautiful piano piece only to start to detune it with tape over the course of the end of it, or finding more ways to stretch and bend the orchestra and synth design just to make it feel as crazy as what we were seeing. And as we started to see that start to smooth out, it was really inspiring to watch these moments where you're seeing imagery that's juxtaposed together, but you can still see the kind of like the, what do you call it, like collage of it, where you see that this is being put on top of this, and to watch the team continue to make it to smooth all that out so it just feels immersive and it feels like you're in this other world, continue to inspire us to figure out how we can, just on the score side, try to add to that immersion as much as possible, and his drug trip.
Thank you so much. Wonderful work, and really, really inspired by it. Thank you.
Hey, this is Harrison Martin with Flix Frog. My question is actually for Kris. Since you have composed scores for other Marvel features such as Punisher: One Last Kill and Secret Invasion, did you look to your past work for inspiration when composing the score for Spider-Noir? And also, did you also look to previous Spider-Man films or TV shows? Because we have seen this character in the animated Spider-Verse films. Did any of that help you create what you made for this show?
Yeah, thank you, Harrison. I think that yes and no. What like in terms of looking to the past, the only thing that I wanted to look at in terms of my own work was and not even look at, but that I was reminded of is working on the Punisher. That was a special screening of that character where John Bernthal and Ronaldo Marcus Green, the filmmakers, wanted it to sound like nothing else in the MCU, and so it's heavy metal guitar and like no orchestra at all, and it's just a sound that I was surprised that they were okay with us really pushing against what Marvel sounds like. And so I think to do that at the same time or just before, I think I was working on this series, it was that permission had already been granted in my mind, where I was a little less nervous about us creating a sound that was completely different than what we're used to seeing in this space. And Oren was also very encouraging of us not looking at all at any other Spider-Man. I mean, Ben says it in the opening of the first episode when Nick Cage's voiceover says, people ask me what universe this is or something like that. And like, this is the only universe I know. And I think that already gives us the permission or the rule that we're not treating this in conversation with other Spider-Men in the Spider-Verse. This is its own space because of the fact that, as a story, this is a character that is only aware of what we're presented with in this space. And then the last thing I'll say, also just give a shout out to Oak and Sebastian and the rest of the team, is watching the first episode, the way that you all treated Dream a Little Dream. I remember talking to Oren about that being the proof of concept, or that being like the thesis statement for what this score needed to sound like. Because like I heard that arrangement before I wrote anything, just when I was watching the episode in our first conversations about whether or not we were going to even work together. And that was so helpful for me to understand, like, this is, an iconic jazz standard that is presented in one way and then starts to evolve and then turns into something completely different. And there's production, like, a production that's associated with it and all these things. So I feel like the way that single track takes you through generational sounds and musical approaches, I think also is so helpful for me on the score side, me and Michael, to know that like this is we have freedom here. Like, this is not about us trying to make something that's purely noir sounding. This is not about trying to make something that sounds like something we've heard before. Like that arrangement is nothing I've heard before, and so that made me really excited about what we might be able to do on the score side to try to find a way to meld together all of these inspirations to create a new sound in the same way that you guys did on that song.
Thank you, man. Whatever credit I can take for inspiring you to make that amazing score, I will 100% take it. I'll take that creative. Hey, did you know that the score that Kris Bowers did on Spider, you know how amazing it is? It wouldn't exist without me. It would not exist.
That's honest. Yeah.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. That's humbling.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Yes, thank you very much for answering my question. I really enjoyed the score. I enjoyed all the music of the show. It was done very well. So thank you, guys.
Hi, Jill Monroe, KBLA Talk 1580. My question is for Warren and Hnedel. So we've talked about the production design and visual effects, and that we have true hue and black and white. Were there any visual effects or any elements of the production design that worked in one of those but didn't work in the other? And how did you handle that, or did it come up at all?
It did not come up for me that I can remember. We did so much testing on the colors, for example, the colors and the textures in advance. My team, the costume design team, we had elaborate point and shoot versions of the Sony Venice camera that was used to film the series. And so each of us was able to test all of the colors, the textures, the fabrics, wallpaper, etc., to make sure that those elements would work in the black and white, the two different black and white looks. And I guess it was 5 different color looks. And by those looks, I'm referring to LUTs. And I don't know if everyone on here knows what a LUT is, but essentially a digital filter that tells the camera how it should receive the information, the color and light information. And then if there was anything where we were concerned between my world and Adele's world, it was we generally that I'm aware of were able to avoid what might have been a problem. You know, Nadell had a limit on the number of shots that he could put in the VFX budget, so we had to keep that in mind all along the way. And there were definitely a handful of times where there was something where we needed to redirect to make the special effects of it be more manageable for the project. But I don't know, and Adele was with the project for a year or more after me. I don't know that I'm not aware of any particular challenges that were just undoable, unfixable. Maybe our largest challenge was the Rockefeller Center fight scene. If you understand that to be Rockefeller Center, the high rise under construction, that was a monster of an effort between getting the set built, but also then designing the set to a smaller set to look larger, and then also work for all of the fight sequences. Is it tall enough? Is the stage large enough? Do we have enough elements to move around to make it look as though the fight's moving from one part of a very large structure to another? And then the surrounding world. Does our building look like it fits in the visual effects generated environment that surrounds the building? But Nadell could speak to any challenges he may have run into after we finished principal photography.
Hi, Jill. So picking up from where Oren left off, like as Oren said, we started production with the goal that this was going to be a black and white series, and then we got a mandate from Sony Amazon saying that we're now going to be black and white and color. The production team, led by our showrunners and the DP, we shot a few tests in and around the Sony lot where Warren, Tracy, and other department heads brought color samples. So by the time production or color and material samples, so by the time production started, we had a pretty good idea of, Warren had made some well-informed choices. Tracy had made some informed choices. We knew what one color would look like in our black and white look, and we knew what a color would look like and how it would translate in the color look. Where the twist came in post when we saw the first look of the show, and there was a note from the studio and Amazon and our showrunner. They all wanted to punch things up a little bit and just get a bit more contrast in the black and white, a bit more saturation and vibrance in the color version. And that's when things got, let's call it, things got tricky, right? Because, on a television schedule, we have to work very closely with the colorist to hit our schedule. So what we ended up having to do, like we always knew any additive effect was always going to be tricky. Additive as in any bright color effect, like electricity, fire, neon, all of those were always going to be tricky to translate and show and depict accurately in both versions of the show. So with Addison on Fire, for example, the way we dealt with this was we visual effect had to work in color. So we worked in color and then translated to black and white and then converted to black and white. And what we ended up doing was providing our colorist with some technical mats so that he could push and pull detail in the black and white version, so that we would avoid sending two different versions of the same file to our colorist, because that would have pushed us over our schedule. Hopefully that answered your question.
It did. Thank you both. I appreciate it.
I would add our colorist is the unsung hero in this project, Pankaj, yes, who I'm also working with now. We work with him to develop the black and white and the color looks. And the work that he then did through posts to what you see today is just stunning. He's amazing to work with. I hope people look him up. Pankaj, I can't remember his last name right now.
Bob Judge.
But what was that?
Bob Judge.
Yes, thank you. Just an absolute genius of a human being, and really kind also. But he's the glue. I would say in many ways, the colorist Pankaj was the glue for us there.
I was going to say real quick, like what was unique about the dual version delivery of this show is it's highly unusual, right? It's not typical that the production designer and props and hair and makeup and costume designer are invited into the color bay early on in the project so that they could see the end result of their work. It's not that's highly unusual, but we did it on this show because of the importance of we had to do it on this show because of the importance of presenting both versions.
Well, gentlemen, we'd like to thank you for your time today. Another thing that's highly unusual is that in nearly 30 years of covering film and TV, I don't think I've ever seen a group of brothers represent a show like this, literally. So we thank the leadership responsible for this show, this unit, and we certainly thank you guys for representing us and really embodying Black excellence as we know it exists. On behalf of the world's largest group of Black film and TV critics, we thank you for watching this edition of AAFCA Roundtables. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.